Hi there, my name is Sam Eliasen. This is my Ecology Environmental Audit for RA class. The community that I'm going to be doing is my research lab group. I work in the Dr. Hannah Stevens lab, uh, also called the Psychiatry and Early Neurobiological Development lab, or the Pendle lab at Harvard College of Medicine. I would be there right now, except for there are a couple PhD students who are working to finish a couple experiments so that they can publish before they graduate. And I didn't want to be in their way since we all share one workspace while they're working through some kind of delicate experiments. So I'm in my lab room, or I'm not in my lab room, I'm in my dorm room, but I'm still doing my lab. I'll get into the questions. What are the official and unofficial messages in your community environment? I think that the biggest like official, clearly laid out messages in our community environment would be safety procedures. Since we do deal with some kind of dangerous chemicals sometimes, there's a lot of information like on the walls about making sure that you're wearing proper protective equipment, making sure that you're using a fume hood when you deal with like especially volatile chemicals or things that could spill and be harmful. So that would be probably the strongest official message. As far as unofficial messages, the reason why I really like the lab that I work in is because while it is like heavily scientific, it also has a large like diversity among the people there, and everyone there is very expressive. So when you walk by different people's workspaces, there's kind of unofficial messages of like acceptance and like personality coming from people's desks when they have like flags and pins and pictures and stuff. So I would say that's the biggest unofficial message, just from people's workspaces, would be that it's a place where you can work and it's also a place where you can be yourself. I already kind of covered, based on those messages, what is valued in your community environment. I think that weirdly enough, both of those aspects, like the physical safety and the just like self-expression of people's individual workspaces, I think both kind of come together to like promote a safe environment. So I think that is a very clear value there, safety and you being accepted for your identity there, you being able to express who you are, and also being physically safe while you're dealing with dangerous things. What cues in the environment help you know how to behave? Obviously, the safety cues let you know that you shouldn't be like burning laps with chemicals in your hand. I don't really know. You shouldn't be doing like silly things with chemicals. Also, since it is mostly grad students and postdocs, and then also we have our principal investigator, Dr. Stevens. It is, while it's an encouraging atmosphere, it's a place where you get work done. And cues from the environment, I think the biggest one would be behavioral cues. I feel like when you're there, while it is a fun place to be, and while I do really enjoy my time there, you know that you have to be getting stuff done, and that like your mind needs to be on, you need to be there, you need to be present, you need to have an objective, you need to be working towards your goal. How easy is it to find your way in the community environment? I would say, as far as community environment, it's pretty easy. Things have been a little bit different because I joined in the middle of COVID. So obviously there's not as much of like a physical connection with the other people in the lab. However, our weekly lab meetings slash journal clubs that we attend allow us all to connect on Zoom. Usually each week someone will take a scientific paper that they choose. They'll show up to the Zoom meeting. They'll present it, and we'll all have a discussion about it. And it could be related to research in the lab or unrelated to research in the lab, but with some interesting tie-ins. And it just fosters like a strong sense of community because through that, I'm already asking people, even if it's about unrelated things, like what something means. And I think sometimes it's really nice to be able to ask someone about like what something means in a paper that's unrelated to your work, because then you can just establish that you're able to have a conversation with them. And just by having those conversations and discussions, I've been able to get to know every person in the lab, like at bare minimum by like name basis and also just like personal background, which isn't like incredibly deep. I have much better connections with my principal investigator, Dr. Stevens, and my graduate mentor whose name is Ben Ulcer. But everyone else in the lab, I do know, and I think that's been helpful because, like as a freshman in a research lab, I think, well, I have friends in other research labs who don't have that sense of community, and I think that's really built by our discussions and journal clubs. Next would be what physical artifacts are in your community, what is their purpose? I'd already kind of mentioned fume hoods. We have a couple of fume hoods there. So their purpose would be to, maintain a safe, like place to do chemical, like mixtures or experiments, or since we do a lot of biological work, there's a lot of stuff that wouldn't be great to like have contact your skin or have you breathe. So you do it in the fume hood to minimize the effects of that. One of them has a huge piece of tape on it that says Big Breezy, and that's what the name of that fume hood is. And I just think it's kind of fun because it is big and breezy, and it's very loud. And I think it kind of ties into that like not playful but expressive and comfortable atmosphere at the lab. What behavioral traces exist in your environment? As far as behavioral traces, I'd already kind of mentioned the fact that everyone there, whenever you see someone there, they're working, whether they're reading a paper at their desk or they're actively doing lab work in full, like coat, gloves, goggles, micropipette in hand, like get up. Everyone there's gonna be working. And I think it's really inspiring to be there because it helps me feel motivated to do my individual project because I have my own research project that I'm working on to get my honors in neuroscience. But also it motivates me in other classes because since I have the connection with these people, they seem less intimidating, and it's encouraging to me to know that these people went through like undergrad. Some of them went through undergrad here at Iowa, took like similar classes that I did. And it's sometimes encouraging to hear people say like, oh, like, yeah, I remember that. That was not fun, or that was a difficult class. And it's encouraging to see that people like, can have productive struggle and then make it out okay and be happy and successful in the lab. So that was kind of a tangent, but yeah, I guess those would be the behavioral traces. Where people identify territory or ownership in your community. I think desks. I actually don't have my own desk. I share it with one other rotating graduate student. Her name is Anna. She is a PhD student working towards her PhD in genetics. So I actually don't have my own like individual space, but the like long-term students there, like my mentor Ben Elser is a fifth-year toxicology PhD candidate. He has like his own desk, and off the side of the lab, our principal investigator, Dr. Stevens, has her own full office where we can come in and talk to her. What are the dominant characteristics of people in your community? Sorry, I'm having allergy problems. So I was gonna sneeze. I think that the biggest thing, as far as like demographics, would probably be age. I am the youngest person in the lab. There's a second-year undergrad, and there's two third-year undergrads who are also there. And there's, I think, 10. There's like a group of about 10 people who are either graduate students, postdocs, or like full doctors. Postdoc is a full doctor, but like, different levels of what they're doing in the research lab. So I think that would be the dominant characteristics. Would probably mostly be age, definitely the lower end of that. What culture / identity has developed in your community? How strong is it, and what signs do you see of that culture? We have a really great culture of encouragement. And that's really evidenced in our weekly meetings and journal clubs. Every time that we start, Dr. Stevens will say, like, does anyone have anything that they want to share they're doing, they want anyone else to attend to this week? And a lot of the times, people will be like, yeah, I'm giving a talk on this day. I'll send the Zoom link to the lab, and then we'll come and we'll support each other through that. I presented at the iCrew Spring Undergraduate Research Festival about a week ago, and it was just nice because I was able to have people there who are a lot older than me, and a lot more experienced than me, and who already fully understand, like, the scope of the research that I'm doing, come to listen to me. And it was just nice. So I think that we have a strong culture of that. When our PhD students graduate, Dr. Stevens has everyone over to her house. They socially distance and stuff, of course. Most people at the lab are vaccinated also. To celebrate, and she'll buy dinner for everyone, and get a big cake, and then we'll celebrate. So I think that's a really great feature of our environment, is that there's a lot of uplifting of people's accomplishments, because people are working very hard there. And I think it's nice because it's not thankless work. People are actively seeking out what other people are doing in order to encourage them. And I really like that. How homogenous is the human aggregate in a community? Let me think for just a moment. I would say that, like, I don't know, our human aggregate is probably pretty homogenous. People there are pretty similar. Everyone's passionate about science, obviously. As far as like personal demographics, I don't know an incredible amount about most people's like personal identities there, on like a super personal level. So I guess I don't really know how like homogenous we are in terms of a lot of the traits that we kind of covered in our personal identity wheel. But everyone there is passionate about scientific research and about developmental psychiatry. So I think in that way, it's applicable enough to our goal in being there, that it fosters like a baseline community. Are there individuals who do not seem to be congruent with the environment? How can you tell? If I'm being completely honest, I'm probably like the outlier in the lab, because I'm new, and because I'm very young compared to a lot of them, and because I started early in research. So it's a lot of learning as I go, because I know a lot of people start research after they've taken, like, maybe their first 2 years of college, and then kind of have some more background knowledge to apply. So I ask a lot of questions, and I have people at the lab send me a lot of scientific papers that I go over and read on my own. And sometimes, or at the beginning of my time at the lab, I felt kind of embarrassed when I was asking basic questions, or questions that seemed basic to me. And as I've kind of developed and had more experience there, I stopped feeling embarrassed with that and just came to really embrace the fact that I'm here, I applied and I got accepted, and I'm enjoying it. And even though I might be an outlier in terms of my like raw scientific knowledge, I'm not an outlier in caring about the material. And I'm also not an outlier, I don't think, in like capability of doing something worthwhile in the lab. So yeah, I think probably me, but I don't think it's a bad thing. How do you know these things? I kind of covered that. I think I gave some examples for about everything. What did they tell you about your community overall? I guess a real quick summary of just everything that I said would be that our lab group is really heavily collaborative. It's really community based, and it's also very scientifically based. Obviously it's a scientific lab, so there's a lot of that. I mean, that's what we're there to do. It's very encouraging. I already used the word collaborative. Sorry. But yeah, like, it truly is a nice place to be. It's very accepting, it's very expressive, and it's safe. And I really have enjoyed my time there, and I'm excited to continue with it. So thank you so much for listening to this. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great evening.